Most monsters want you to run. This one wants you to answer a question. A woman steps in front of you. Her mouth is hidden, the way we have all learned to hide a face. She asks if she is beautiful. There is no answer that lets you leave. One story tonight, about a street that went quiet, and children who learned to say nothing at all. My name is Michiko. For 11 years, I have been the crossing guard at the corner where the old neighborhood meets the school in San Jose. 31 children cross with me between 2:55 and 3:20. I count them out into the street and I count them again on the far curb. 31 and 31. I count twice. That is not in the handbook. That is mine. People think the job is the vest and the paddle. The job is the count. It is a small neighborhood and an old one. The shop on the corner still makes its sweets in the back. On Tuesdays, the drum practice comes down the block, in through your shoes, not your ears. Nothing waits on that street unnoticed. She stood there anyway. Far corner under the leaning light, a little back from the curb. Long gray coat, too heavy for a San Jose January. White shoes, nurse's shoes. I don't know why the shoes were the thing I kept returning to, but it was always the shoes. And the mask, pale blue, pleated, the kind every drugstore in America sells by the 50-count box. You have to understand what a mask is now. Half the grandmothers at my corner wear one in flu season. A mask on a stranger stopped meaning anything the year we all put one on. She had chosen the one disguise the whole country had agreed to stop seeing. That first Tuesday, she stayed 40 minutes. She never looked at a phone. She never shifted her weight. When I had walked the last of my 31 across and turned back for my sign, the far corner was empty. The smell hung on another minute against the wind. Then it let go. In January, I was not afraid. What I felt was a single wrong number in a long column. You have outed the same way for years. You don't panic. You go back to the top of the column. By February, she was there every day at dismissal. Never in the morning, only the afternoons. Only when the children came. And the children knew before I did. Kenji, 3rd grade, drags his backpack by one strap so it hisses along the pavement behind him. The hiss would stop when he reached my curb. Every child went quiet in the same 6 feet of sidewalk, the way birds go quiet, all together, without a signal. Across the street, they'd start up again mid-sentence, as if the quiet had been a tunnel they'd walked through. Children don't reason their way to a thing like that. They just stop making noise near it. The smell came every day now, always ahead of her, always ignoring the wind. It bothered me the way a name you can't retrieve bothers you. The smell I knew, the smell of the shelf it was supposed to be sitting on, in a room I couldn't find. The 14th of February, a Saturday, I smelled it inside my own car. Windows up, doors locked, a cold engine in my own driveway, and the smell sitting in the passenger seat, like it had been waiting for me to run errands. I sat with my keys in my hand and did not start the car. The smell faded the way it always faded, politely. That is an ugly word to use, and it is the correct one. On the Monday, I went into the school office. I told the secretary a woman had been standing at the far corner at dismissal every day for 5 weeks.
Had she approached any children?
No.
Said anything? Taken photographs?
No. She was already typing while I talked, opening the form, because there is a form for this. And she said, without looking up,
Is she maybe on the volunteer list? Sometimes the grandmas just like to watch the kids come out.
I said the woman was not one of the grandmas, and I heard my own voice when I said it. It came out at the wrong height, pitched up half a step, small, like a recording of me played back on a cheaper speaker. The secretary heard it too. Her fingers stopped. 2 days later, the school emailed all the parents. An unfamiliar adult has been observed near dismissal routes. Students should walk in pairs. Thank you for your partnership. Nobody lied in that sentence. That is the thing about the form. It has no field where the truth would go. One mother brought me coffee and said she felt so much better knowing I was out there. I stood with the coffee going cold in my hand, being the reason everyone felt safe. And across 4 lanes, the woman stood a little back from the curb, hands folded, watching. The advisory went out on a Wednesday. On the Thursday, she was 10 feet closer to the crosswalk. Then the 11th of March, and the day I stopped understanding my own story. There's a boy in my 31, Mateo, kindergarten, who cries at loud noises, and on the 11th of March, a delivery truck dropped a lift gate half a block up, and the whole street cracked like a shot. Every head at that corner went toward the sound. The mothers, the grandfather with the little dog, Kenji, me, 30-some human beings turned as one animal, because that is what people are. She didn't turn. I was looking at the sound too. I only caught it because turning my head put her at the edge of my eye. Every face on that street pointed up the block, and the mask stayed exactly where it had been pointed all along, at me. That night, I did the arithmetic I had been refusing for 9 weeks. I had never seen her look at a child. Not when they laughed, not when Mateo cried, not when 31 of them crossed stopped traffic in a line like ducklings. I had told the school she was watching the children, and mothers hugged their kids tighter and thanked me. She had never once been watching the children. The children were the schedule. The children were the reason a woman could stand at that corner every day at 3 o'clock without one person finding it strange. The way a fisherman is not strange standing by a river. I was the river. Hollowgrin here, only for a moment. In the winter of 1979, on the far side of the Pacific, the police departments of more than one city added patrol cars to the hours after school. Teachers walked children home in groups. Parents took turns standing at gates and corners. The newspapers wrote it up that January. A woman, a mask, a question. And by summer, in a city called Himeji, a 25-year-old woman was arrested carrying a knife, dressed to match the descriptions. The arrest is in the record. So is this. The descriptions had been coming in for months before her, from school children in towns she had never been to. They did not describe her. There has always been a rule for questions like the one this woman is waiting to ask. The children knew it then. Some of them still do. Here's what I did not tell the school, or the mother with the coffee, or my own sister. I did not tell them because for a long time, I could not have told myself. I grew up in Gifu prefecture, in a town with a river through the middle of it. And in the winter, I was 9 years old. The adults changed the rules of walking home. It happened fast. One week, we walked home however we walked home. The next week, we walked in fives, assigned fives, read out loud by the teachers, and no one peeled off until the group had passed their own gate. A teacher stood at the school gate with an armband. Some evenings, a police car parked where the shopping street met the bridge road, engine running, the exhaust standing up straight in the cold. I remember understanding the sideways way children understand, that the car was there because the parents were the ones who were afraid. Nobody official ever told us what it was about. What we traded instead, under desks, at the shoe lockers, was rules. Don't walk alone. That one came from the adults, so we half ignored it. The rest came from children, which is why we kept them. If a woman speaks to you, don't run. She's faster. Everyone had a cousin in another town who knew. If she asks you her question, do not say yes, and do not say no. There was a middle answer, a nothing answer. We practiced it, whole clusters of 9-year-olds in a schoolyard in the snow, practicing a shrug in words, and carry candy. No reason attached. Carry candy. My mother never asked why that winter I wanted the little octagonal tin from the sweet shop in my coat pocket every day. Other mothers laughed about it. Mine didn't. Mine bought the tin and refilled it without being asked all winter. The only thing she ever said about it came in the spring when the fives were disbanded and the police car stopped coming. She took the tin out of my coat before washing it, held it in her hand a moment. I can still see her hand, the tin, the kitchen, put it back in the pocket and said,
Keep it there.
The winter ended. That is what I would have told you up until this year. We told ourselves the spring took her, because in the spring, there were no more stories. There is a difference between gone and finished waiting. Now the smell. I owe you the smell. My father wore his hair combed back, like every man on our street, and on the shelf below the mirror sat a yellow labeled jar. Hair oil, pomade, a smell so ordinary in 1979 that a whole country's fathers walked through it twice a day. That is what crossed 4 lanes against the wind every afternoon in San Jose this spring. Not a smell like it. That smell. My father has been dead for 19 years. And the street where I count children smells at dismissal exactly like his hands. I placed it in March, 2 days after the lift gate. Mid-count, 14 across, and the smell arrived. And some cabinet in the back of me came open at last, and what was in it opened all at once. A thing I had folded so small, so long ago, that I had stopped being able to feel its edges. It is February of 1979, and I am 9 years old, and I am alone on the bridge road in the blue part of the evening. I am alone because of a fight. Michiko said something about my shoes. It does not matter. It has never mattered. I let the 5 walk ahead and dawdled to hate her properly, and the distance between me and their voices got long, and then it got quiet. The street light at the end of the bridge road leaned. Under it stood a woman in a long coat There was no one else. There was the smell of my father's shelf, out of doors, where it did not belong, and I remember reaching for that smell like a handrail. It is Papa's smell. It is a safe smell. And the woman said, "Good evening, little one," and I stopped, because we stop when adults speak to us, and that is how we were made. That was the whole trick of her. She did not catch children. Politeness caught us. She only stood where it would bring us to her. She was tall, the way the streetlight was tall. Gray coat, pale shoes, above the white cloth over her mouth. Her eyes were the most reasonable eyes I've ever seen. Nothing about her eyes was strange. You could deposit money with those eyes. And through the cloth, in a voice with a smile folded into it, she asked me, "You know the question. Even here, even now, an ocean away and half a century on, you already know it. Not to tell you everything about how old and how patient this thing is." She asked me if she was pretty. Watashi kirei. And I was 9, and the schoolyard rose up in me. All those practiced shrugs in the snow. I did not say yes, and I did not say no. I gave her the middle answer. So. Average. The word came out of me in a puff of white, and my legs were already leaning toward the lights of the shopping street. Here is what the schoolyard never told us. The schoolyard said the middle answer confuses her, that she stands there stuck like a machine fed the wrong coin, and you get away. She was not confused. She looked down at me. I watched the pleats of the cloth move where the smile widened under it, and she nodded, the way a clerk nods when an account has been reviewed and found to be in order. And she said, and I have kept these words for 47 years, "Then I will ask you again. Not tonight. Not you got me. A receipt." The middle answer is not an escape. It is a deferral. An appointment was made on the bridge road, and I am the one who made it. With a shrug I had practiced like a jump rope rhyme. Then the lights of the shopping street had me, and I was running. I have never been able to remember the part where she let me pass. I told no one. Rumiko and I made up by Thursday. A 9-year-old did the only sane thing a 9-year-old can do with a thing that size. I folded it small and put it where the folded things go. And I grew up and crossed an ocean and married and buried my father and took, in my 40s, a quiet job with a vest and a paddle, out of doors, near children, at the meeting place of the old neighborhood and the school. And I never asked my mother what she knew. I told myself there would be time, that some Sunday call I would say, "The tin, Mama. Why did you keep filling the tin?" I never said it. My mother died in October. The woman came to my corner in January. For a while, I called that a coincidence. I don't anymore. Whatever my mother knew, I think she was doing something with it, quietly, for 47 years. And in October, whatever had been standing between me and the bridge road stepped out of the way. The appointment did not lapse when I crossed an ocean. It waited out my mother. She crossed the street on the 2nd of April. Dismissal was over. That matters. She waited for it to be over, which told me she knew my count as well as I did. Kenji's backpack had hissed away around the corner. The buses were gone. I was folding my sign and the smell thickened, and when I turned around, the far corner was empty and she was on my side of the 4 lanes, the edge of my crosswalk, 8 feet from me, hands folded. No light had changed. No gap in traffic had opened. The distance was simply spent. Up close, in the shoes, 11 years of feet crossing my paint. Shoes tell you everything. Hers had no creases, not new, unused. White shoes that had never taken a step anyone heard. Up close, her eyes were exactly as reasonable as they had been under a leaning street light when I was 9, and they had not aged 1 hour. The last hopeful sliver of me, the one that had spent March saying coincidence, sat down and was quiet. She looked at me the way you look at something you have owned for a long time, and through the pleated blue cloth, in a voice I last heard through white cloth, with the same smile in it, unhurried, unaged, and now in English, because she goes where the account goes and speaks what the account speaks.
Am I pretty?
I want to tell you I was brave. What happened is smaller and stranger than brave. I opened my mouth and my voice was not there. Not a crack, not a squeak. The whole instrument gone. My body had done the arithmetic faster than I could. There is no correct sentence here. It declined to offer one. We stood there, she and I, in the longest 4 seconds of my life. In my hand, not me, I make no claim to it, went into the vest, passed the whistle, and closed on the tin. Not my mother's tin. I do not know what became of that one after I left home. This one I bought at the sweet shop 3 blocks up, 11 years ago, my first week on the corner, without letting myself ask why. Octagonal, dented, refilled every Sunday. I am my mother's daughter. We keep the tin. I open the lid with my thumb. One motion, no fumbling. My hands were the only calm thing left standing, and held it out at arm's length over the painted line of my own crosswalk. The eyes went from my face to the tin. She reached out one gray glove and took a single candy. And then, I need you to hear this exactly. She did not lift the mask. The candy went in behind the claw, without the cloth ever moving aside, and I heard it click against teeth, then against more teeth. The click traveled left, past where her mouth should have ended, then another answered from the other side. The pleats stretched to follow them, out with the straps at her ears, and for 1 second, the mask was the wrong shape for a face. Then it was not. She stepped back off my curb. I did not see the step. The distance was simply returned, and just before the mask turned away, the pleats moved again. She was smiling under there, not at the candy, at the tin, at how long I had been carrying it. 47 years of interest, paid in sugar. The smell went home before she did. My voice did not come back until the next morning. She came back on May 29th. She asked again. My voice disappeared again. This time, she took 2. 1 candy in April, 2 in May, and the second time, my voice stayed gone for 3 days. I told the school it was laryngitis, stood my corner with the paddle and the whistle and no words at all. Hurting children I could not have warned. The smell comes earlier now too. It used to arrive with her at dismissal. Now some mornings it is on the corner before I am. Whatever this arrangement is, it is not holding still. Candy is not payment. Candy is interest, and the rate is moving. And then there's the thing I do not know how to file. 2 weeks ago, Kenji stopped on my curb, the backpack hissing to a halt, and said, "Miss Michiko, a lady told me to ask you something." I put my hand flat on his shoulder, and I said, "Do not ask it. Go straight home." He shrugged, the way 8-year-olds shrug off the whole world, and crossed, and I counted him over, and I stood on my corner and shook. I do not know what happens if a child finishes that sentence. I am not going to find out. So no, I have not quit, and here is the truth about why. The corner is the one place where I choose the terms. Daylight, witnesses, the time I know to the minute. At first, she waited until the children were gone. Since Kenji, I know she is testing the edges of that too. But if I am on the corner, I can stop the sentence. If I leave, the appointment does not end. She's followed the account across an ocean in 47 years. The next asking happens somewhere she picks. My kitchen, the dark, or a child on a curb half a block from no one. At the corner, the appointment has an address. That is not safety. That is the closest thing to it that I am owed. So I stay. I count them out and I count them back. 31 and 31 twice. I buy the candy in bulk now. The man at the sweet shop thinks I am kind to the children. And my sister noticed before I did that I no longer answer questions quickly. Any questions? Is it cold out? Did you eat? There is a beat now. A checking. A hand going toward a pocket. I expect I will do it for the rest of my life. However much of that there is meant to be. Because she was right on the bridge road when I was 9 and clever and rich with rules that were never rules. They were terms. She will ask me again, and I still do not have an answer that is not a door. The crossing guard is at her corner tomorrow, 2:55. She will count them out and count them back, and no one who thanks her will ever know what the count is for. In 1979, the grown-ups did everything grown-ups do. Patrols, escorts, an arrest that answered nothing. The children traded the only things that ever bought time under their desks in the 2 minutes before the bell. Some questions are doors. Do not answer them. Not yes. Not no. Not ever. And this has been